I'm going to do a couple of videos about bar chords, mainly because it's come up on one of my campfire song sheets, so it's something that I felt like it's the right time to tackle now on the channel. I know a lot of my students in person seem to find them intimidating and a little bit difficult, and physically they can be a little bit difficult if you haven't played them before, but there's nothing to be afraid of, and like anything else, with practice and a little bit of dedication you can achieve what you want to achieve and learn to play these chords. Now, in this first video, I'm just going to give you like a bit of an exercise to begin with, and just in terms of getting your hands strong enough to be able to tackle the bar chords, because there's a few different elements that we need to look at. And then in another video or two, I'll take it a stage further. We'll have a real quick look about the theory about how the bar chords work, and we'll learn to play some actual bar chords. But for now, this is just going to be a basic exercise. If you haven't already done so, I'd strongly suggest having a look at my other videos, particularly the ones on power chords. I've done a couple of videos on power chords. I'll put the links down in the description, and also be aware of the capo if you're not. I think I've done a video on capo. I'll put a link to that, but I'll run through it again now just in case, just real quickly. So with the bar chord, basically what we're doing is the capo that I've mentioned, we're using one of our fingers to replicate the capo. So as an example, if I was to put the capo on the third fret, third position on the guitar, like that, that's what the guitar is going to sound like as opposed to normal. So we use the capo to fret strings for us, and it almost has the effect of moving our nut into different places on the neck so that we can play open or root position chords. So that same capo on there, I can play like an A minor chord shape and a C chord shape with the capo on the third fret, whereas normally if I played those chords without the capo, they'd sound lower pitched, because I've been playing them 3 frets higher up. Rather than using the capo to do that, with the bar chord, the idea is that we use our index finger in these examples I'm going to show you. So the key to get us going is being able to just make that that bar with the first finger. By bar I mean my finger's going to cover all the strings on A fret, just like my capo did. So using the same third fret example, my capo, that's my bar. Rather than using the capo, I'm going to use my finger and lay it across all the strings like that. My other 3 fingers are doing nothing. The only one that I'm playing with is my index finger, and I'm pressing that down across all 6 strings at the third fret to make that bar. So that's going to be the first thing that we need to learn, and we need to get comfortable with doing. Say comfortable, it's going to feel uncomfortable if you're not used to doing it, and your hand's going to ache a little bit, as with everything. Start slowly and build it up. You want all your notes to sound clean, and the key to that is finding the correct amount of pressure to squeeze your finger against the neck with. You can't see it because it's behind the neck, but my thumb is pretty much in line with my first finger, so it's in the perfect position. My thumb's not down here or up here. It's my thumb's on the third fret position, but on the back of the neck. So I've got a good fulcrum to be able to put pressure on to hold those strings down. Now, when we talk about playing the notes cleanly, the temptation is, and it's not a bad way to start, you'll probably end up gripping a lot tighter than what you actually need to do to make sure that the notes are sounding cleanly. Because if you don't grip it tightly enough, like when you're playing any other chord, you'll end up with something like, because you're fluffing the notes instead of actually holding them down nicely on the fret. So you need to find that sweet spot of where you're pressing it down hard enough for the notes to sound nicely, but not pressing it down so hard that you can only hold it on for a couple of seconds before your hand gets cramped and you're too tired to actually play the chord. That'll be different for everybody depending on your guitar setup mainly, action setting or the string height setting on your guitar, the string gauge that you're using. So obviously a higher action and a thicker string gauge is going to make it more difficult. A lower action and a thinner string gauge is going to make it easy to a point, but I'm not going to get too technically into it because you can play out of tune with thin strings with a bar chord if you're not careful. But that's the basics of it. If you've got an electric guitar, it's easy to start off practicing on that because they do normally tend to have a lower action on the strings, and they usually have thinner strings on, unless you've got it set up particularly heavy. But that'll be the easier starting point. But I'm doing it on the acoustic because it's perfectly playable on the acoustic. So the first job before we move on is just practice doing that so that all your notes sound okay. Do it in a few different positions. Don't worry about the other fingers. Don't worry about it not sounding like a proper chord. We're going to get to that. But this is your first exercise for strength building. Once you're okay with that, move on to my next exercise where I'm going to talk about how we're going to develop that and use that to build up these actual bar chords. So I know you probably won't enjoy, but stick with it anyway.